one of the useful features that FarmOS offers is the ability to import logs and assets. So rather than using the interface, which does require an internet connection, in many cases a farmer will be out in the field and they may not have mobile Wi-Fi access where they are. So with all logs in FarmOS, you can import via a spreadsheet. So if you have a spreadsheet application on a tablet, you can be out in the field recording log information and then bring that back to the office and import it into your FarmOS. So each log type has this link here to import. This is for harvest specifically. So if I click import harvests, it will give me information about the CSV file. So a CSV just stands for comma separated values or character separated values, which is essentially just a type of file you can create from a spreadsheet. So if you have Excel or LibreOffice and you create a spreadsheet, you can export that as a CSV file that can be uploaded into FarmOS. So each one of these log types provides a template that you can download. I'll just show that. And the spreadsheet will have columns for all of the fields within the log type itself. So,
and you're using LibreOffice, but again, Excel, Google Sheets, essentially every spreadsheet program out there can import or export a CSV file, right?
That's right, yeah, yep. So LibreOffice is a good open source alternative if you don't have Excel. It's free to download. So here's an example. I'll try to make this bigger. So this is just a spreadsheet template for importing harvest logs. So you can say whether or not it was done, which would be either a 1 or a 0 or a yes or no. A date, so you can say it was 2017, 10/30. You can give the harvest log, you can give logs names, but they will be filled in automatically, so you could just leave that blank. Asset IDs will link them to specific plantings, so you can get the asset IDs of your logs by coming up to your plantings tab, and each planting will have an asset ID associated with it. So this just gives you the ability to link to specific assets. You don't need to do that, but it is helpful for organizational purposes.
And I think that's a good point to really emphasize, is that this can be a pretty sparse set of information, and the idea is whatever you have that really helps you zero in on the specific harvest while you're offline, just capture here, import it, and then you can really clean it up within FarmOS later by editing the log, correct?
That's exactly right. I think that's a great point, and I say this to a lot of people, sparse data is better than no data. So even if you're starting with less information than you ultimately want, it's better than nothing. So you can come in here and really the only required field is a date. So even if you just came in and said date and harvested spinach, you can import that, and that will become a log within FarmOS. And like you said, you can go back in maybe at the end of the month or at the end of the year and fill that in with more detail. I think it would probably behoove you to enter the quantity and the quantity unit at the same time, because that might be hard to remember. But yeah, that's a good point to make, is that it's really up to you how granular you want to get with your record keeping in FarmOS. It doesn't require a lot. It's up to you what you need, what you want, and what you want to achieve with it.
And I think it's another example of the person entering the date, the name, and the area may be different than the person who ends up entering a lot number. And so
that's right.
There may be a process here that the farm needs to incorporate to end up with that complete data set from several more sparse data sets.
I think that's a great point to make too, is that FarmOS tries to be as flexible as possible. So it doesn't make a lot of decisions, and it's not very opinionated for you. But that means that you can create workflows around it that work for your specific operation. So like you said, you could take this CSV template, and if you don't need a lot number field, you can just delete this column, and you can pre-fill some categories, or you can pre-fill your areas ahead of time and have this spreadsheet ready to go for entering data into throughout the season. So you can prepare some of these things ahead of time, have them ready to go, just enter the simple pieces that we're missing as you're plugging it in, and then import it. So I think there's a lot of potential for developing workflows around FarmOS, and I'm looking forward to kind of putting together some recommendations as we work with more farms to define, what are some good operating procedures, and what are things that work for some.
Great. And so one example of that is we've been talking about auto-generating lot numbers as a potential additional feature. So that's great. So can you actually walk through an import?
Yeah. So I'll start with this spreadsheet here. So I'll continue with this. So let me link this to an asset ID. Let me load up my plantings really quick.
Or
so
don't. Maybe don't and do that as part of the log edit. You know what I mean? Like, so somebody captured the basic information: date, harvested spinach, how much, and what unit, and then import that as a sparse data, and then clean it up. I think I might.
Okay. Great. Sounds good. So I'm going to change it to tomatoes since we don't have spinach in there right now. But so I'll say harvested tomatoes, and I'll just say 50 pounds. So if I save this now, you'll want to make sure that you're saving it as a CSV file, not as an Excel or LibreOffice file. So because I downloaded this as a template.csv, it's just asking me, do I want to continue saving it as a CSV file, or do I want to save it as more of an advanced spreadsheet file? So I want to use the text CSV format. So I'm just going to click that. So that just saves this file again. Now I'll come back to my harvest logs, click Import Harvests. I'll find that file. And I'll click Import. So see, this says created one log, and now I can see this right here, harvested tomatoes, 50 pounds. So those are all the things that I filled in there. So now I did say that log was done in my spreadsheet, and so that's why this is now checked off. If I hadn't, then it would be not done, and it would be unchecked like that. So that might be a good workflow for some people too, is to, especially if you're doing sparse data, start with a spreadsheet that says no in this column, and go through that, add in your data, import it, and then use that as an opportunity to review your logs, and once they're reviewed, mark them as done. So I'm going to go into this log now for the harvested tomatoes, and I can see it's pretty sparse. It just has a title, harvested tomatoes, has a quantity of 50 pounds. So now what I want to do is actually clean that up a bit and link that to the tomato record, and maybe also to an area so that I know where those came from. So I'm going to edit the log. I can add a lot number if I want at this point too. I'll leave that blank for now. Under assets, this is where you relate your logs to specific asset types. So what I'm going to do is just filter down this list of plantings, and I'm just going to say tomato and apply. So now it shows me that I have this tomato planting. I'll select that and click submit. And so now this log is linked to that tomato planting.
And so that would also link it to any inputs that have been attached to that planting, and any seed starting, germination, other activity logs, right?
That's right. So I'll save this log now. Now that it's linked to tomatoes, if I save this, I can see that it links me over to that tomato asset record. And if I click on that, this will give me all the records that have taken place around that specific planting. So I can see my seedings, I can see my transplantings, my harvests, and like you said, you can add inputs and that kind of thing. So I can say fertilized, and maybe I fertilized back in August. So input records are great too, because you can say what material you used, what the purpose of the input was, application method, the source and manufacturer of it, and the input lot number if you're required to record that, so you can keep track of where your inputs came from.
And so that within FarmOS, that could be including linking it to a compost pile as an asset.
It could, yeah. Yep. If you have lot number associated to your compost pile. Yep.
Or even down below under assets, can't you say the input was from pile 891 or something like that?
That's right. Yeah, I could also do that. So I can come in here and link it to the compost too, so that they're kind of all linked together. And in the future, I think we'll kind of break some of those things up a little bit better.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that part. Yep.
So I think you covered how to import a CSV. Oh, one question, Mike, going back to when you imported that LibreOffice CSV file, it was only one line. If it were multiple lines, would each one get an individual log?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me, I'll come back in here. So if you're importing multiple records from a CSV, you would simply just add multiple lines to this document. And so this is actually another good workflow tip. If you're starting off your year and you want to kind of set yourself up for your harvests, you could say, okay, well, I'm expecting to harvest 5 different tomatoes on October 30th. You can just kind of clone these down this way, and maybe I'll know that this is from Westfield, Eastfield, Greenhouse 1, Greenhouse 2, etc. And leave the quantities blank for now, until you're actually doing the harvest, and then you can open up the spreadsheet and say, okay, I did 25 pounds here, 10 pounds here, etc. And once you import those, each one will be represented as a separate harvest log within this system. So I'll just go ahead and show you that. And,
so this could even, you could use this spreadsheet basically as a way of, or you could use FarmOS as you're sitting in the comfort of your office. You could use FarmOS to create basically work tickets for planned harvests, then export that as a CSV. Whoever is in charge of the harvest could keep track of the specifics of it in an offline CSV file, so not web connected. Adding data to this sparse matrix that is a work ticket, and then save that, and that could get re-imported back into FarmOS to complete the picture. Is that a possible workflow?
Yeah, that is a possible workflow. Yep. I will say one exception to that is we don't currently have the ability to export and then re-import a log. So whenever you import, it creates new logs at this point.
Gotcha. So probably at this stage, best to create, I'm using the term work ticket, create that as a CSV.
Create it as a computer CSV and then import it that way. Yep. And a potential good workflow using that method would be to create your spreadsheet in advance, and you could import it at this point too, and maybe I'll leave these 3 blank just to show this. So I'll import this and come down and find that file again. So see, this created 5 harvest logs now. So I've got 5 additional logs. And now, I can actually come in here and assign these to specific people. So I can say, assign this to Michael Kilpatrick. So now this will actually appear on Michael's work list, and he can go in and check off whether or not he's done that log.
So when that person within the FarmOS farm setup first logs in, they get a dashboard presented to them, and it would include activities that are yet to be done, right?
That's right. Yep. So if we go back to the dashboard here, we'll see here's some of those harvest logs that are not done yet.
Great.
So they can come in and say, "Yep, I did that," and then it's off the list and it's archived forever.
Great.